the virus. They don't go in crowds of people. They don't do things that they shouldn't do. We're doing whatever they're mandating us to do outside of here. So we can feel free when we come to the virus. They don't go in. Does that sound all right? Okay, once again, we're happy to see everyone at this time. Today, what we're going to be talking about is we're going to talk about stress. And I think that's a big problem that we have, even more so. They're not talking about that, but you're having more stress, you're having more anxiety, you're having that literally more than the pandemic. I'm in the hospital, the news is not talking about it, nobody is talking about it, but what we see a lot of in the hospital right now, stress, anxiety, and suicides. They're not talking about that. We have more people coming into the hospital wanting to commit suicide, stress, anxiety. And so we're going to be talking about that also. We're going to be talking about the stress, we're going to be talking about the anxiety. And we're definitely going to be talking about the things that you can do to boost your immune system this season, because it's going to be a little worse. We know that because we're going to have the coronavirus and then we're going to have the flu. So you need to be educated about the things that you need to be doing at this time. We need to be eating certain types of food, but at the same time, we need to be taking certain things out of our diet this time of the year. And so as we gather together this afternoon, we're going to be talking about some of those things.
All right, so I'd like to welcome everybody once again. Good afternoon. It's nice to see everyone. As Howard said, it's been a little while, unfortunately, but we're thankful to see you here nonetheless. And today we're discussing a very important topic, that is stress, anxiety, and the immune system. I believe the immune system or immunity is something that needs to be emphasized more. Because there's a lot of things that our immune system does for us and fights off, whether we sometimes realize it or not. And especially in these times of uncertainty where perhaps people are worried about getting sick or getting the virus itself, it's important for us to do whatever we can to strengthen our immune system. And today, our focus is on stress and anxiety, because many people don't have a healthy way of dealing with their stress. This many times in turn develops into an anxiety disorder, or perhaps even depression. And it's important for us to understand how these things affect our immune system and why this, of course, relates to our theme this afternoon. But what is the immune system? The immune system is made up of a network of cells, tissues, and organs that work together to protect the body against infection and maintain overall health. So the immune system essentially is fighting for us. It's our defense for the body to keep us healthy and to ward off certain bacteria, diseases, fungi, and pathogens. The immune system, of course, works to limit these microbes, their access to the body, and prevent them from growing and causing illness. Okay, so because the body is an optimal environment for pathogens, as I mentioned, bacteria, fungus, viruses, and parasites, even to thrive. So there are a couple things, and many things, in fact, that can help our immune system. Some of those things being just going on here, a little list here is diet, as we're sure going to get into after this presentation. Sunlight, okay, sleep, okay, whether or not we're getting adequate amounts of sleep and a good quality of sleep. Okay, just because we're getting 8 hours or a certain amount of hours is not the only thing, or time is not the only thing we should aim for, but quality of sleep as well. And of course, stress, and that's what we'll this afternoon. And this is a very important thing to understand. It's important for us to know these things because many of us may be procrastinators. Many of us may be people that just like to ignore or avoid our stress, right? I think of different, maybe some of us can just think of little instances in our life that cause stress, okay? I'll just give you an illustration. Maybe we have, every now and then we walk in and walk out of our house, maybe we have a light bulb that's gone out, right? Something just minor inconvenience, but we do nothing to take care of it every day. We walk in, it's not on. Walk out, it's still not working, right? And many of us will just live our life never changing this light bulb, letting it affect our day in and day out. And realistically, what does it cost to just kind of, go and change that? We could probably do it in just a few minutes, right? A few moments. But this in turn is actually a good illustration of other things that stress our lives as well. There are things that we can do to better our life quality. In fact, there are many things that we should do, but we often don't. And in the context of stress, these are things that stress us out. These are called stressors. So if you're taking notes, these things are called stressors. Stressors are things that are without or a potential cause of stress. Okay, some examples of that may be finances. Okay, sudden events in our lives, sudden life-changing events. Okay, death, thinking about death. Okay, there are many things. Of course, stress itself isn't a bad thing. Okay, there is bad stress, there is good stress. An example of good stress is us being conscious, responsible people, due dates, bills, and things that need to be taken care of, right? Feeding children, feeding pets, and so forth. Being reminded or being stressed out about those things is not necessarily a bad thing because this is the type of stress that helps us to live a functioning life, right? But our focus tonight is what we term chronic stress or stress that is just ongoing and has a negative impact upon our lives. So just to give you the definition of stress, it goes as follows. So stress is the body's reaction to any change that requires an adjustment or response. The body reacts to these changes with physical, mental, and emotional responses. Stress is a normal part of life. You can experience stress from your environment, your body, and your thoughts. Even positive life changes, such as a promotion, a mortgage, or the birth of a child produces stress. So again, there's good stress, there's bad stress. Our focus this afternoon is on chronic stress. Some symptoms of stress, if you may be someone that is dealing or suffering from stress without knowing. Okay, because what's something we probably do to ourselves? We say, oh, I'll take care of that later, right? Or I know it's a problem, I know it's an issue, but it can wait, right? How many of us say those words? It can wait, and perhaps we may not feel the effects or be conscious of the effects, but it may be something that other people notice in us. So these are just some symptoms that may be notable. Irritability, okay, which can be or may not be extreme, okay, so we kind of lose some patience with people. We start to kind of be not as patient as we used to be, right? Fatigue. This is something that I can think of some people in my life that are tired, right? Some people, they get enough sleep, they exercise, they do this, they do that, but they're still tired or they lack the energy. This is actually something that stress can zap out of us, or stress is something that can cause us to be tired. Headaches. Headaches is another one. It's something more physical, something that we feel the effects more clearly, right? Sometimes we get a random headache, or we get, these headaches, of course, can be caused by stress as well. Difficulty concentrating, or an inability to do so. Rapid, disorganized thoughts, difficulty sleeping, digestive problems, and even changes in appetite. So these are things that can affect, or these are symptoms, of stress, that we are being impacted by stress, whether we may have realized or not. So Just to explain to you kind of how we deal with stress or the process of stress, is typically described in 3 steps. So again, if you're taking notes, these are important steps to remember, or 3 phases rather. So, so we talked about stressors. Stressors are a potential source of stress. Okay, we talked about how we'll define what stress is, and these are the 3 steps, phases rather. So phase 1 is an alarm reaction. Okay, this is when we come across something that is potentially stressful and triggers our body's fight or flight mechanism to deal with the situation. Now, many of you may have or may not have heard the terminology or the term fight or flight. This is think of, I'll give you an illustration. Imagine you're walking around the corner of your house one day, right? And you're kind of distracted in thought. And as you turn the corner, you look down to your foot, and you see something that looks like a rattlesnake. Your brain, your mind, your body will immediately, upon realizing this threat, your body will begin to brace itself to react to the emergency. Okay, as we'll kind of describe a little more in depth later, but this is phase 1. So we realize the moment or the potential source of stress, right? This is our initial reaction. This is our body preparing for a fight or flight situation where we choose to deal with the situation right in the moment, or we choose to run away. Typically, this could be, you can associate this with situations like emergencies, okay? Emergency situations where it's a fire, okay? You're going to choose to either put it out or get out, or a threat, could be a threat to your life or somebody else, and those are typically what you can categorize under this phase. Phase 2, upon having or being in this situation, phase 2 is a state of resistance. So this is where we decide what to do. Okay, so we initially are engaged with the problem or the stress. This second phase is how or what we decide to do to deal with the situation or the stress. Okay, if of course this is if we choose to face the stressor or to flee from it. So if we chose to flee, that's what we would do in this phase. We chose to run away. Or if it's something we potentially face, we choose to deal with it. I'll give you an example. Say there's somebody on the street that got hurt. I could potentially run away, or I could potentially decide to go and help them, right? I choose to go and help them, and I choose to deal with the situation and use my ability to help them, right? This is the second phase. Now, typically these 2 phases describe what we would describe as temporary stress, okay? And there's a reason why I'm emphasizing this. So this is stress that we deal with, then it's over, forget about it, and that's it, right? So this is, these are events, these are our moments in our lives that we deal with stress in that manner. Now, the third phase is what you deal with if you are someone that potentially needs this to become chronic stress. Okay, so in this third phase, this is typically a stage of exhaustion. So this is something that stress has accumulated, it's gone over a period of time, you decided it's just kind of built up, right? And in this phase, disease or even death can be inevitable. So it's at this point, at this phase, where stress starts to take a potential harm upon our health. Okay, this is where the suppression of the immune system is. This is where we feel these symptoms that were described earlier. It's in this phase. Just giving you some symptoms or some effects of short-term stress. Okay, these are things that happen or can happen under these first 2 phases, being the alarm and state of resistance. Increased blood pressure. How many of us been in a situation or an emergency or type situation where we could feel our blood pressure increase, right? Increased heart rate, right? Our heart starts to pound more. Our pupils can become dilated, or We can even increase our muscular strength in that moment. Our liver could also release some glucose. We can also increase in mental activity. Our metabolic rate can increase, blood flow to the muscles as well, and even decrease the blood flow to areas not needed for rapid activity. So again, these are situations where our body is reacting to stress, okay? And our body is having a physiological impact by our reaction to stress. Okay? I'm kind of emphasizing this for a reason. These are moments where stress is temporary. Okay, now long-term stress is stress that can cause dementia, obsessive compulsive disorder. Okay, people that tend to be OCD, you kind of scratch, you kind of do something to deal with stress, right? Anorexia or aversion to food, depression, panic, anxiety, which we're going to get into. Anxiety, not necessarily specific panic anxiety, but impaired memory and shrinkage of the brain. Okay, so all of these are long-term effects of stress, okay, or chronic stress. Now, why is it? Why is it that stress can cause these health issues? Well, it's heavily related to a hormone called cortisol. Okay, so cortisol is essentially, the body's nature's built-in alarm system. Okay, it's how our body's main stress hormone. Okay, so it's the body's main stress hormone. It works with parts of your brain to control your mood, to control our motivation and our fear. It's produced by our adrenal glands and our kidneys as well. It's best known for helping fuel the body's fight or flight, which we mentioned, in moments of crisis. Okay, but cortisol plays an important role in a number of things as well, and other things that our body does. Okay, so cortisol isn't a bad thing, is what I'm saying. But high levels of cortisol being caused by sources of stress, because our body is constantly, or not constantly rather, but our body's fight or flight mechanism is being triggered by stress. This is again releasing or causing high levels of cortisol, okay, which our body is not naturally producing. So, just to give you more information on cortisol, it helps to manage our body's use of carbohydrates, fats, proteins. It helps to keep inflammation down, regulates our blood pressure, increases your blood sugar. Okay, so that's why this is associated with how we deal with stress. Okay, and many, many more things. So one of the things to walk away with this presentation that I would highly emphasize is that we deal with our stress. Okay, things that are stressing us out in our life, of course, we should exercise wisdom on how to deal with them, but it's important for us, if we can deal with them in a healthy manner, to deal with them soon. Because as mentioned already, we are Christians. The Word of God tells us, let everything be done decently and in order. Okay, we ought to be organized Christians, organized people of God. And it's important for us to be organized even in our thoughts and our priorities. So this is one of the things that leads to procrastination. How many of us are familiar with being procrastinators? We put things off, right? We have responsibilities, or we have things that we need to take care of, but we don't. Why is that? Well, procrastination is often associated with people avoiding certain negative feelings. Okay? It's something that stresses us out. We avoid that stress. So it's a way of us trying to deal with that stress, but it doesn't take care of the stress. Okay. So again, procrastination in our dealing with stress is not a good thing, because again, this can lead to chronic effects of stress upon the body. So as mentioned already, stress, due to its potential high levels of cortisol, can produce or help or be a factor in developing anxiety, which we'll get into. But just to read a little bit more about cortisol, it says here that, as mentioned already, the increase of several hormones in the blood stream are involved in protecting us from a sudden stressor. So in moments or situations where we're dealing with something that stresses us out, there are various hormones that our body releases to deal with the situation, cortisol being the main one. So high levels of cortisol can wreak havoc upon the body, causing much physical and psychological damage. A list of damaging effects, which we already went over, are according. So again, those are dementia, OCD, anorexia, depression, panic, anxiety disorder, impaired memory, shrinkage of the brain, and of course, suppression of the immune system, which is what we're talking about today. So this is something that can potentially lower our immune system. So we may be taking vitamins, we may be taking pills or medication to help or even natural remedies and so forth to help boost our immune system, but we're not dealing with the stress in our lives. This is working against us. So it's important for us to do everything in our power to strengthen our immune system, including dealing with our stress. So anxiety, just to give you some interesting facts of anxiety. Anxiety disorders are the most common mental illness in the U.S., affecting 40 million adults in the U.S., even at age 18 and older. So that's about 18% of the population every year. Anxiety disorders are highly treatable, yet only about 36% of those suffering receive treatment. So again, when dealing with things that stress us out, many individuals have the bad habit of just not confronting their problems. In fact, this is one of the characteristics of anxiety is not being sure of how to deal with your problem or how to deal with something that stresses you out continually. Okay. Of course, anxiety can also develop from many risk factors, including genetics, brain chemistry, personality, and life events. Anxiety, in its definition, is a feeling of uneasiness and worry, usually generalized and unfocused as an overreaction to a situation that is only subjectively seen as menacing. So in other words, it's a feeling of feeling uneasy or you're worrying, okay? And typically it can be an overreaction to a situation that is only subjectively seen as menacing, okay? I think of this in terms of just, again, an accumulation of something. How many of you have ever been, this kind of may be out there, but how many of you have ever dealt with problems in the home, like in terms of maybe a leak or just something that, a problem that can gradually grow worse, okay? It's important for us to take care of problems and things that we can deal with as soon as possible. But again, anxiety, its connection to stress and even our immune system is through this hormone cortisol, because anxiety is something that is causing our body to, again, react like if we're in an emergency. This is why people who have panic disorders or panic attacks, their body is reacting as if there was a physical threat, though outwardly they're kind of just reacting to nothing visibly, but their body is having a physiological response as if there was an immediate emergency. So continual worry, continual levels of stress upon the body, okay, suppresses our immune system after a while. So it can be something that contributes to disease, okay, to sickness, because our body's immune system may become weakened because we are constantly worrying, because we are allowing ourselves to be in a state of fear continually. So this is, again, an important connection for us to understand, because it's something that we may, like I said, not deal with. It's something that we may just tell ourselves, it'll wait, it can wait, and some just examples that I can think of are problems that we have with other people. such as forgiveness. You know, we can have things that stress us out with people, not forgiving one another, or just being stressed out, or being not in good terms. Okay, that's something that we can potentially take care of. All it requires us is confronting the situation. Now, I'm gonna kind of ask an obvious question to all of you. Please feel free to answer. Why is it important for us to take care of our problem or our sources of stress immediately? Anybody? To avoid diseases. Okay, why else?
Stay healthy.
To stay healthy. Okay. Okay.
They'll accumulate.
Because it'll accumulate, right? It only gets worse sometimes, you know. And one of the most obvious answers is because tomorrow's not promised. You know, we need to value life for what it is, value life every day, because we can't just assume that tomorrow is promised and say, oh, it can wait for tomorrow, or it can wait to such and such day. But many, especially if it involves other individuals, sometimes, you know, we don't get that, we're not afforded the opportunity to deal with on a regular basis or all the time. So just some things that can help you to deal with anxiety and in turn boost your immune system. These are just some 3 things that I have here written down. These things, of course, we mentioned already: sunlight, sleep, diet. Okay. One of these things being is exercise. For those of you that have been here regularly, it's something we mentioned a lot. Exercise, because exercise has so many benefits to many parts of the body. But it's known to improve our immune system. Okay, it's the #1 natural way to fight anxiety. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. Exercise is the #1 natural way to fight anxiety. Okay, and I can't stress that enough, because people who deal with anxiety, people who have that issue or are dealing with stress and worry, they typically tend to avoid exercise. Maybe for different reasons, but it's something that we should be motivated to do, okay? Especially if we're dealing with these things. Second, regular exercise releases chemicals in the brain that drastically improve mood, burns off excess energy, which is known to occasionally develop into anxiety. Second, here on the list is healthy eating and hydration. So a good diet, good levels of hydration. Okay, drinking our waters, not these fountain drinks, not these sugary drinks or energy drinks or caffeinated drinks, but just water, good old water. Healthy eating and drinking. More water isn't exactly an anxiety cure. It's not something that's going to necessarily a direct cure, but there is a great deal of evidence that unhealthy eating and dehydration seems to make anxiety symptoms worse. Okay, so it's a means of helping us deal with anxiety as we're trying to overcome. So if we're dealing with some of the symptoms already mentioned in the beginning, okay, those were again irritability, fatigue, headaches. Okay, all of these things are can be addressed and directly benefited by healthy eating and hydration. And of course, lastly here, I have massage. Okay, now many of you, if you're married, if you have a spouse and so forth, it's something that you can teach and learn together. Okay, to relax one another. Massage is a known anxiety reduction strategy that also appears to have immune system benefits. Okay, so it's a means of detoxification. Okay, it helps our bodies, it helps us just to feel more relaxed. Okay, it helps us to perhaps kind of take a mental shift considering our problems. Yes.
Question: how does it help the immune system? That's very interesting.
Okay. So it helps the immune system by this chain of connection, how we've been talking about how stress is connected to anxiety. And really the bridge to stress and anxiety is these high levels of cortisol. It's not being in a constant state of mind where we're in fight or flight. So massage helps us to calm down, to relax, potentially even put us to sleep, right? And it gets us away from stressing our body to a state of emergency or as if there was potential stress in front
It
of
like
us. So that's
loosens the tension that
Exactly.
you have, that you
Ex-
store in certain
exactly.
areas. in the body.
exactly, and I'm glad you mentioned that because what's one of the ways we deal with stress, or our body deals with stress. For those of you that have
Yes,
physical
yes,
jobs, we
yes.
get tense, right? We get knots, we get places in our body that become stiff. So perhaps going to the chiropractor, getting a massage and so forth. These things are sometimes things that we don't think of right away, but our body stores stress like that as well.
So it's actually lowering the cortisol.
Yes,
Mhm.
exactly.
Wow.
It's more so helping our body or helping us to not suppress our immune system or to suppress our body from trying to fight or flight from something.
Right.
Cause I was just gonna mention too, like, cause whenever you do loosen that tension, it also has the benefits of like allowing your blood to flow correctly in certain
Exactly.
parts of your
Yes.
body.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like full circle.
Yes,
kind of.
exactly. Because cortisol is associated with the blood.
Right.
Yeah, you're talking about how it helps with blood flow and everything. Yes. And so there are many more things. These are just some three that I thought were really good. Again, those are exercise. Can't emphasize that enough because if you're someone dealing with anxiety, you need to be, and I say this not like it's an option. No, you need to be on a regular exercise program. If you're somebody that is dealing with anxiety, you cannot afford yourself to be wishy-washy with your exercise if you are someone that is suffering from this. Eating and hydration. Again, we're going to go into a little bit more of some natural remedies to help your immune system, which in turn will help you be more healthy overall and to fight diseases, right? Because what happens if we're suppressing our immune system, we're kind of stressed, we suppress our immune system, we become sick, and what happens when we're sick? We miss work days, we miss things that happen in our life, and this does what? It causes us to become more stressed, right? So it's important for us to deal with it as soon as possible. So again, just want to encourage you, okay, life is precious. It's important for us to not let stress, not let things accumulate. You have the power to deal with it,
What happened with that I know it's stress, but I just get stressed. I don't want to get stressed out, but I get stress or anxiety.
Okay, so it's a good question that was asked for those of you viewing is how do we deal with stress that we don't know the source, right? Or sometimes we're just being stressed and we don't know
We
what
already
stress
know
is out.
stress, but we still stress out.
Okay, so we were aware of the stress, right? And we don't necessarily know how to deal with the stress. Is that the question? Yeah. So that's where I would say education is very important because it's important to educate ourselves again how stress works and also educate ourselves on methods or things that help us to relieve the stress. Okay. And again, these are three things that I encourage you to do. You can do it today. You can do it for free, which is the great thing, right? You don't need to go and spend a whole lot of money to do this. So confront your stressors, okay, and be healthy because God wants us to be healthy. He wants us to be happy, okay, and that's why we bring up the Word of God many times because it's important for us to recognize the spiritual aspect to our health. Okay, that's why faith in God people who tend to be religious have a higher quality of life than those who don't, because we have someone that we can go to with our problems, someone that shows us our stress. So, I mean, if those of you that are dealing with stress, you may not know the source, or you may be dealing with stress, or may not know how to deal with the stress. Rather, it's something to take to the Lord and pray about. So, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Once again, I just want to encourage you. So, yes, and hand it over to Alida.
All right. Well, thank you, Wally, for sharing this important information with us today. And for those of you that are watching through Zoom, we're going to be offering, as you know, we're still in the flu. Well, we're going to be going into the flu season. So we have 2 remedies for you. And for those that are on Zoom, maybe I can try to see if we can send it to you. We have some samples here with us. So our first remedy here is, it's called Nature's Penicillin. And we have some of the copies back there if you guys want to grab one. Okay, so Nature's Penicillin can be used effectively for the following purposes. It could be used for colds, flu, sore throat, infections, respiratory problems, and general immune. It's a general immune system strengthener. It is very simple to make. Okay, so basically what we are going to be needing for this recipe is 1 grapefruit, 1 orange, 2 lemons, 3 cloves of garlic, half a large onion, and 3 drops of peppermint oil. And I'll go over the benefits really quickly. For example, grapefruit, it's really high in vitamin C, which is an immune system strengthener. Grapefruit is very valuable as it aids the body in eliminating poison. The rind of the grapefruit is natural source of quinine and is a good source of vitamin P. So now we have orange. Orange is very high in vitamins B, C, calcium and iron, potassium and phosphorus. Lemons are a natural antiseptic. So we have there the lemon as well. It's very high in vitamin C. It helps with the immune system. It helps build your immune system, especially beneficial to the liver. Garlic. So now let's go to garlic. It contains vitamin C, calcium, potassium, and phosphorus. Garlic is one of the most beneficial foods for the digestive system as well. Okay, and we're gonna go to onion. Onion also has lots of very helpful benefits. It contains vitamin A, iron, calcium. Onions are very good in antiseptic qualities. They help drain the mucus from the sinuses, cavities, and loosens phlegm. They also will destroy worms and other parasites in the body. Okay, and our recipe also calls for peppermint oil. So we have peppermint oil, which brings oxygen into the blood, and it cleanses and strengthens the entire body. So as you can see here, we have a very strong immune system fighter within this recipe. So, and it's all raw, so all the nutrients are live. We don't cook it, so that's where you receive the most benefit out of your recipe when it's raw. Okay, so for those of you on Zoom, maybe we can try to see if we can send you somehow a screenshot if we link it in there. And for those of you here, you can go ahead and grab them in the back. Did you have something? Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, for those of you that are there in Zoom. And we hope to see you for our next health class the next month. We'll go ahead and let you know when we're going to be having our next health class, and we'll have it on Zoom as well. So thank you for joining, and may you guys have a good day. Thank you.
Very good.
All right. We'd like to thank everybody for coming today. Very exciting. And you know, I always have something special for someone that has come today. Now, I see someone that has not been here. Who hasn't come before? I think you, Abel.
I used to go to the.
Yeah.
Yes, but you haven't been to